Okay, everybody, welcome back to Inform the VoteNJ.com interview series. My name's Steve Solof, and I'm sitting down with Robert McQuade again.
Hello, everyone.
And I want to thank him for taking the time to do a second interview, a follow-up, since we've had a lot of developments over the past month or so. So we want to address those kinds of things that have been talked about, and also to dive in to comparing him to the other candidates, because it's one thing for everybody to state their initial platform and have some chatter on social media, but at the end of the day, we're making a choice. So we're gonna highlight some key differences that Rob has that are making him a standout candidate from the others. So let's dive straight into some of that comparison.
Sure.
And this is going to be a little bit lengthy because I'm sure people at home are not following along as closely as I do or you do, but they should be given some sort of introduction as to kind of what's going on and how a comparison might be made. So, one of your agenda items is to have a citizens community board.
Yeah, community relations board is what I want, and have citizens on the board. Actually, structure it sort of like how I had it on the school board. We'll have maybe one or two commissioners can be on it, along with the business administrator, city clerk, and then our chair will be a citizen. It won't be anybody to do with City Hall itself.
Sure.
I'm going to structure it a little different.
And if you don't mind, let me elaborate on how that's a key difference between you and the other candidates. So, let me see, where is it? Okay, so I was reviewing the information for this interview.
Right.
And I was looking at that specific issue. And you see on Carol Casaboon's information, she has the sentiment of wanting to get the community more involved, but she doesn't necessarily directly address how she's going to do that. So, like, yeah, you would assume everybody who's running for office wants everybody to be involved, but we as citizens want to know how. Like, how are you going to do it? How is she going to do it? How are the others going to do it?
Correct. Yeah, because I've had like 20 years almost now under my belt running for office and holding seats. I mean, I've held 9 years on the Millville School Board and 1 year with City Commission. I was a county committeeman for the Republican Party. Being that, I mean, I know how to set these things up, the structure. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, I know who's going to be in it. That's why I was saying, like, you know, maybe 1 to 2 commissioners, a business administrator, city clerk. All right. And then I'm going to, instead of structuring it, usually like on the school board, I was the head of the committee. I was the chair. I'm going to give that chair to a citizen. From the community, and the citizen will be the chair of that committee, and then we're going to structure it out from there to other seats in the committee. We're going to do strategic planning, ideas and stuff for the city that needs to be done, what we like to see done, and we might do like 100 of them, or 50 to 100, and then we'll pick it down to 1 or 2 to work on and get that completed, and then we go back to the strategy board and we start again.
Sure.
Now, the people have got to realize this is a 1-seat term, so whatever we start, we have to work fast on this year. Once the next, if I get in, or if another commissioner gets in and decides to do the same thing, we have to work fast because it's a 1-seat term, and they'll have to rerun in 2025. So
sure. And then let me further elaborate on the comparison. So now when I look at Marissa Ranello's information, she has said how she's been very active on social media and inviting people to come out to community events and all of that stuff. So that's a very good approach as well. But I know through communicating with you, you've also put forward the idea of doing a Facebook group of Millville Ambassadors.
yes.
You want to talk about what that might look like?
We were going to do, it kind of got shot down by a commissioner who wasn't too happy about it because the police department has to be involved, and I'll leave it as that. But we could do it without the police department still, and community ambassadors was just going to be like an idea of like, more like community relations, strategic planning, seeing where the problem areas are, gather information from different sections of the city, and by gathering that would be citizens from those sectors, wards would be coming to these meetings and giving us their information, their own personal problems, and we would do strategic planning on how we could give our information to the city, to trying to work it different than being like in office. So it would have to work different. So we'd be as citizens going to the commission and bringing this to them of the problems, and you'd have to hit them every commission meeting because if you don't, it could go away. So, and also we'd like to find out all the good information too from Millville, so we could sponsor that on web pages, not just here, but around the tri-state area, to get people to come to Millville and enjoy different areas of Millville, which we do have some nice areas. So like Union Lake, and we have our parks, we have we have walkways around the river, and we have the race car track. So
yeah, attracting people here and getting everyone more involved at the community level to make that possible and more attractive.
Actually, I'd like to take the ambassadors further and take them to the from even though the commissioners in Millville, the county commissioners as well, to be a part of it.
Sure. And then to finalize the comparing, Maria Darmenio suggested that when we're doing community involvement, it needs to be a year-round process.
Right.
You can't just show up during elections and kind of complain and do Johnny-come-lately style stuff. And I agree with that, but from my personal experience getting involved over the past year, oftentimes I will show up to political meetings such as like the Vineland School Board.
Right.
A couple months ago I went and I wanted to specifically talk about communicating between the school board, getting the information out a little bit more. And I know I sat there for an hour and a half while they were in executive session. And I was just like, well, screw this. I'm going to go to martial arts class because I have no idea whether or not I'm ever going to be heard. So I know that's sort of like picking on them a little bit. I don't mean to make anybody look bad, but what I'm getting at is, while I agree with Maria, people in the community need to be more involved.
Right.
What I'm liking about what you're saying is you're making a direct pathway. A community relations board says, we want the community to be here. We're specifically listening to your concerns, your suggestions. We're going to prioritize it. We're going to be on top of it. And then the ambassadors thing, where there's a specific group that gets together outside of the meeting.
Right.
And then they can go as a group to present their clear case. We
actually did that similar to the ambassador with the Millville Crime Watch back in the early 2000s with Mary Messick. We actually had people come to my house. We had about 25, 35 people come out from different areas of the wards, and we discussed what the issues were, the problems. The Daily Journal would come out to the meetings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my house was cluttered with people, but we.
Well, you gotta make it happen.
Yeah, we went
just like right here, right? We're in your house.
Yep.
We need more press coverage. Blah blah blah. We could get picky about we need to be in the perfect setting. Blah blah blah.
Right.
Well, no, we got a phone. We got some microphones. We got two people talking about it.
Correct.
We can make it happen. If there's a will, there's a way.
Right. So I'd like to do a live show with you if we could do one on Facebook.
Oh, like a live stream?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah,
if you want to set one up.
We can consider that too.
And let people, at least they can, I don't know if they can call in, but they can type their questions.
Yeah, that could happen too. Oh, right. Look at the chat.
Yes.
More direct.
We could do that.
Yeah, sure. So, I personally like the direct involvement so that there's no confusion. Oh, there was another point that I wanted to bring up with that, which is if you had those groups together, then it wouldn't necessarily be incumbent on like any one person to show up to all the meetings.
Right.
So part of my experience over the past year is, well, I go to the county commissioner meetings, I go to the Republican breakfast, I try to go to Democrat events when they let me in. And it's a bit much for the average person. Now maybe for somebody like me, I should be involved. You know, I'm stepping up as this person.
Right.
But, you know,
It's
if you're
hard.
showing up half the time and you're not really getting any
It's
relevant
hard.
information, or, you know, you might not get your chance to speak, or they don't really
Right.
take your suggestion and do anything with it, it can get demotivating. So it would be good to know that maybe there's a group of 50 people, and then so-and-so goes on the first Monday of the month, and then so-and-so goes on the second Tuesday, or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, delegate and share the workload.
I was thinking with my, if I got in with the Community Relations Committee, I was going to try to do it every week. Now, it doesn't mean that, you know, every commissioner would be able to come, or it doesn't mean every week. I mean, at least once a month, I'd like to have one commissioner, a business administrator, and the city clerk. The other 3 meetings I'll still be at, and we can have the chair, whoever we put, or, you know, we'll structure it how we can do it. But I like to do it every week, because the problem is some people don't have that time frame to go that particular meeting.
Yep.
So at least at the other 3 meetings, they won't be as intense as if everybody was there, but we'll still get the info written down so we could discuss it at the main meeting.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea. So we went in depth into that one difference. Is there anything off the top of your mind where, having followed obviously the election yourself and being involved with it, are there any other key differences that you have that make you stand out from the other candidates?
I was a part-time police officer. I have law enforcement background. Sometimes some cops different, because you're a class 1, there's class 2s and class 3. I was a class 1. Class 1s don't carry, but I foot patrolled through Millville.
Sure.
Through drug sections and stuff. So I've dealt with homeless people. I've dealt with panhandlers. I've dealt with criminals. I dealt with the good. So I dealt with kids. So I thought I would be out walking the community like I did before. I went out with code enforcement. I went to different properties with them. I talked to the squatters that were in there. City was making water bill payments with them. The electric company was making electric bill payments with them, although they're not on that property on a lease or a mortgage. So, you know, we worked with them the best we could. We're trying to find them places to go. Meanwhile, the owners of the properties, nobody wanted to be there. I mean, owned the property. So it went to the sheriff, Augustino then, and he put it up for sheriff's sale. And the people got out. We helped them get in contact with family or friends that could put them somewhere. And it kind of worked out. I actually have a couple of them that I'm taking care of on another property. And I'll do that in another video, but with them in it. But I got them off the street. I got a couple other people, like I said before, off the street. And, you know, it just got to work together, because some people on my last video questioned, like, well, you want to get rid of the panhandlers, you want to get rid of the homeless. Well, what are you going to do with them? You're going to cause a mess like the landlords. I said, no, we're going to work with M25 initiative, try to help get them out off the streets into like rooming houses or something, because a lot of them are getting SSD too. And SSI. So get them off the streets and into these facilities so that they can start their life all over again, hopefully.
Yeah,
Some don't want to.
Touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
No. I let you. You gotta explain yourself, right? Yeah. So that's fine. So that main key difference is, what I'm hearing is, you have a lot of boots on the ground field experience that the others may not have.
Right.
Okay. Anything else come to mind before we move on?
No, I volunteer. I help people all the time, so I'm out there helping. And I did that when I was commissioner. I even went out in a trash truck with the guys on the weekends to pick up large bulk trash that we set up. Chris Finch had it with different sectors of the city we would do. You know, I wanted to know how our employees felt about working for the city. What was their problems? What were their likes and dislikes?
Sure.
So it worked out pretty good. I mean, I had no complaints from them. And when I worked with them, they were my boss. I told them, and you tell me what to do and tell me what you like and don't like. And there's no write-ups, no nothing.
Sure. And I just want to clarify for anybody watching, that was not meant to be any sort of like direct endorsement of your candidacy or disparaging any of the other candidates. It's just at a certain point, we got to think through, like, what are the actual
Right.
differences? So I appreciate that sort of like forthcoming interaction with trying to think that through. So let's move on. There's been some chatter on social media about you possibly getting some campaign funds that weren't quite.
Oh, there was? I didn't know that, because it's funny, because I don't have
No, whatever. Maybe you need to explain it to me again. Whatever that form you sent me with the.
It's a C1 and a D1 you're supposed to fill out. You don't need to get a bank account if you're
Okay.
not spending any money. If it's under $200, I ain't spent anything, because all my signs are from years ago.
Right. I was thinking about my signs.
I didn't buy any signs.
Right, just picking them back up.
Yeah, some of them
so
might
you
say
can use them
school
again
board.
next year.
Yeah, some of them say school board, and I commissioned over it, and some of them say nothing, just vote Robert McQuade. They're all old signs, so those signs are probably, God, almost 20 years old, and they're petered down to just a half a dozen to a dozen. That dozen left. So I'll probably purchase new ones in the future, but I'll probably end up purchasing them before I even run for any office.
So it's kind of just sounds like gossip on social
It's
media.
they were trying to, my personal opinion, they were trying to stir the pot up and make you look bad. That's what they were trying to do.
Okay.
You don't need a checking account or anything open if it's under $199. 200 and more, you have to.
Okay.
As the paper I showed you,
Sure.
I sent to you.
Now, and I'll put that up on the internet when I get time. A lot of this information's coming in. I just did another interview yesterday, so the work's piling up. So I'll get it up.
Well, I understand it, because it's gossip, it's attack, it's trying. Of course, this candidate, that candidate, and this candidate, they want somebody to vote for them.
Right.
So they're going to throw it up, whatever
Actually,
they can get.
That leads me into my next question. So a couple of the other candidates seem to have had similar issues come up. And just by my impression, they seem like minor issues as well, but I don't know what your take on all of that is.
I paid no attention to them.
Right. Okay. Sure. Yeah, because sometimes, even at the presidential race, sometimes there's just so much stuff out there. It's hard to know what is an actual
here's
big
my
deal
philosophy.
and what's not.
My philosophy on this is that when we have campaigns, people are like targeting, saying you're running against, don't vote for Steve because Steve did this and Steve did that. Vote for me. Well, why do you want me to vote for you? So my thing is, tell them what you're going to do. What are you not or trying to do? All right, and what you've done in the past. Don't talk about Joe Smo over here, because you're slandering him, but you're not telling me nothing. So the battering, to me, it's not worth it.
It amounts to a lot of distractions.
Yeah, and then the people can't concentrate on who really is caring about the city.
Sure.
And who really cares about people.
Right.
I care so much about people, sometimes I get myself in a little financial problem, but
Right. I've been there. So anyway, we'll move on. The sale of retail marijuana has been a hot topic in this race. Some people say it's a good way to generate extra revenue for the city, while other people say it would contribute to disorderliness and other problems in the city. I want to get your take on that.
Well, I really didn't like it when it came in for manufacturing for it either, but I didn't care if so much if it was out towards the airport, away from town. There were some near the charter school in Millville. I didn't think that was a proper place to put it. We'll just say that somebody wanted at that time to give. They sent me letters stating that if they wanted me to vote yes, I could possibly get some good fundings towards my campaign. And I voted. I was like, no. I said no, and I let that election law in Trenton know about that. So we went from there and just took care of that issue. That was a few years back now.
Sure.
But I let that go, and I'm voting for my feeling, because a lot of people would have took that. A lot of candidates would have took those things. So I'm like, for the people. I don't think that we should have the retail sale in the city right now, because there is so much with the climate here, with all the issues going on with crime and
you're not talking about climate change.
No. Climate of Millville's environment here, because we got homeless issues we got to deal with, and some of the panhandlers aren't homeless. Most of them aren't. If you talk to Cindy Cook and others, they're just living in rooming houses and they're trying to get their money.
That reminds me of a
some
story
are.
I had in college, right? So I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and so I was a guitar major, right? So on Friday nights, I'd go take my guitar and play on the side of the road just for fun,
Right.
Not panhandling or whatever. But there was this guy who would sit next to me. He's got all the tattered clothes and he's got the sign and all this kind of stuff. And I just got to talking to him, every Friday night for a couple hours, blah, blah, blah. And after like a month or two, I looked over at him and I was like, so like, what's going on with you, man? Like, can I help? Like, do you have a place to stay? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, no. My apartment's right up there. I'm just saving up for the new video game that's coming out next week. I was like, what? So, I mean, I don't know everybody's story in Millville who may or may not be homeless, but it's at least somewhat plausible from my perspective that they're not.
No, because I know a couple of them I'm friends with, and I helped them get them off the street being homeless. And now they got their SSD, but they are trying to get the money for either drink or something else. I'm not going to say, but something else.
Sure.
And I told them that's wrong because those that are really homeless that really need it, you give them a bad name, so stop that.
Right, it's a distraction.
Right,
and then it causes like a trust issue.
Yeah, because
as a normal guy, now I got to look at
because people see this person out there or that person, and they no, they live in a rooming house. They're not homeless, and it gets around. Because there is a guy that posted it about some scammers out there on Facebook.
So basically, to get back to the original question, you're not in favor of it because it's contributing to an already sort of disordered atmosphere. Okay, that's your basic stance. But
there are stores in town that are selling some of it too. I don't think our commissioners are aware of that.
Oh, you mean they're doing it like under the table or something?
Well, yeah, they're selling like raw and stuff. It's marijuana smoke sticks that are.
Oh, okay. And they're not supposed to be, I guess.
They're calling it CBD, but it's more than CBD. But
right. I gotcha. Okay, so moving on. I've had multiple conversations with someone who has strong roots in the community of Millville. And not just the community, but also is a former politician. And I'm going to keep that source anonymous for the time being, just because I want to address it, but I don't know exactly how they feel about, getting their name out there or whatever. So this person claims that with the government still operating under the Walsh Act, it hinders the effectiveness of the government because the mayor is only like a mayor in title, and it kind of strips away any significant executive power, I guess you could say.
Oh, they're right.
Right, sure. But what I'm saying is that person is implying or suggesting that it hinders the ability for the government to properly function. What's your general feeling on all that?
Well, it hinders it functioning like Bridgeton or Vineland with a traditional mayor. And what I mean, ours is the Walsh Act, and it's runs more like the school board, because we'll put an example. I kept calling Mayor Orndorff, I kept calling her Madam President, because I was used to saying Madam President with Kim Carty on the school board. But sorry to cut you off, but let's just explain how that Walsh Act functions a little bit more for people who aren't aware. It just functions more like, well, that's what I was getting to when I said that.
Sorry.
Okay, so I called Lisa Madam President, which actually she is a Madam President instead of a mayor, only with the title, because the Walsh Act has it more, it's a board. It was done in Galveston, Texas back in the early 1900s during a hurricane.
But it's not just a board.
It's a temporary form of government.
Each board member has their own department.
Each board member will have their own department, but you're supposed to really work with the department head, just like with the school board. You work with your department head. Our department head of the school board would be the superintendent. Here, like streets and roads would be Wayne Grossman, and try to work with them and find out what their needs and money wise what they need. A lot of times some commissioners will go in and it's hit the table and do it my way. Instead of finding out, you as a supervisor, what do you actually need?
Okay.
All right. So like the mayor of Millville has no more power than Commissioner Ranella or Watson. Right. They all have the same title, except the mayor gets a few dollars more in her pay, which folks, they only get paid $150 every 2 weeks. Okay.
Right.
So that's all they make. So it's basically a volunteer position. And you have the charge of each department because you're supposed to really take care of the paperwork and the money situation. And there's only one commissioner that rules the money would be Joe Suey. Now each department has their own little pocket of money, but if you need additional money from revenue, you have to see the vice mayor for that. And the vice mayor is the only one that controls that, not the mayor.
Right.
So it's not a good form of government. It's supposed to have been a temporary form of government. So it should be changed, except in years past, even when David Ennis tried to do it too, to have it moved, it was always brought up, oh, we'd have to have a full-time mayor and we'd have to pay him a full-time salary, which would be more than 150.
I've made that suggestion myself when I was talking to Benjamin Romanek before. It was when he told me how much people were getting paid. I was like, wow, no wonder like things maybe are not getting done as efficiently and effectively as they could be.
Because they're not there full time.
Right. They're not there full time. And then I guess maybe if more people were aware of that, there'd be a little bit more sympathy about politicians.
Yes.
It's like they barely get paid anything to do what they do. And my guess is campaign season pretty much dries up half the pay.
Yeah.
Right? So
yes, because county commissioners they make fairly good. They make like $22,000 a year.
That's what my impression is.
Yeah, they make around 22. But your local government, I don't know what Violent and those folks make.
But even by modern day standards,
it's not.
No. If you're complaining about how government is being run, but your elected representatives are not getting paid minimum wage.
Right. So I
guess it is what it is, right?
So I think like if they went from the Walsh Act to the regular form of government with the mayor, the way I understand it, talking to the former business administrator and city clerk, it would have to be a full-time mayor and they would have to pay a full-time salary because now you're talking about a person who has a position job somewhere might have to take a leave of absence to operate and run the city.
Right.
So that's why I say it's always good, like if someone who's like a mayor or something like that, like they own their own business and they can have somebody else run it while they're doing it, or if they're retired, like Romano's retired from wherever, and he's going to be running for mayor, he could do it full time on whatever salary they pay him.
Right.
Millville, in that case, don't have that option. If you go there, there's no commissioners in that office every day, except maybe Joe Suey, who's retired, and Kurt Hewitt, who's in charge of the police department, is there every so often. But other than that, they're retired. So. And I was there a lot because I was retired out. But anybody like Romanek and Watson and Marissa, they have jobs and stuff they do. So it's not their full-time position and it's not their livelihood. You do it and you take these positions and you run for these positions because you care about your community and you care about the people.
Yeah.
Unless you have some type of an agenda that you think you're going to get wealthy, like some Congress people do when they get in office. But other than that, a small office like this in cities is usually because you care, you don't like what's going on, and you want to make a change.
Sure. So then, generally speaking, you could see the Walsh Act getting changed, but it's not 100% necessary.
No,
is that what you're trying to say?
Well, what I would say is, like, I know the mayor would have to get paid some good money to take that full-time position. The way they're saying, I think the state wants the mayor to be there full-time. So they would have to, I would like to say, like, put information out to people who want the city on this is what it's going to be and what it's going to cost us for this mayor if he is on a regular, commit a regular form of government. If we do the Walsh Act, this is what it's going to be. Do you want this type or do you want that type?
Oh, okay, so you're
and
saying
let them vote.
Put it up for a
But
vote.
don't put it up like they have done in the past. Put it up to vote and just, do you want the regular form of government or Walsh Act, and not explain on what it's going to cost and stuff. Nobody knows that. They
they need to be properly informed.
Correct. Yes, they can put it in a newspaper, put it on the website. They can put it in your tax bills when they send them out to you, like they do with any other letter.
Some way.
Yes, to
Give
let them
an
know.
Informational packet so they can make an informed choice.
And then the people can make that decision.
Right. Okay.
Because that's what our government is, for the people, not for the government.
Right. Gotcha.
I hope I explained that good enough.
No, yeah, I know you had kind of explained it to me during private communications, but I just wanted to make sure it was
Right.
clear for everybody watching.
Well, I just want to make sure I didn't sound like I was babbling. But
No. Like I said before, more information is better than less.
Right.
Because I can review and parse out the
Right.
important parts, but if you don't say enough, then I just don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So moving on, that same source also claims that Millville is stuck in the old ways of thinking, which relates to how historically people of color were treated poorly and might be still being treated that way to an extent today.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just to help explain, I've even heard, some claims that projects like the NABAV extension are being done in certain ways to avoid Center City Millville, so that businesses and all the business people coming in don't have to look at something that might look like a slum, I guess is the gist of what this person was trying to tell me. So, as somebody who has been actively involved in the community for so long, do you feel that issues of possibly historic racism or systemic racism is a prominent issue for Millville?
Well, there's no doubt there was racism in Millville, and years back we even had the Klan come here. And I'm actually Irish and Hungarian and Catholic, so I did have some friends who used to be a part of the Klan, their family members, and I was told not to tell them I have Hungarian in me, and not to tell them I was Catholic. And they had to explain why, because they don't like Catholics and they don't like Hungarian, because you weren't considered white, you were considered trash, is what they considered it. So yeah, I know what they're talking about. And then with the police department, we used to, when Third Friday started up, we used to block off all the east side of High Street, so that 2nd Street wall where it's now a laundromat, they didn't want people going that way because they were afraid they would get mugged. But in today, it was more crime issues for that reason. And in today's world, like, I don't think it's so much in Millville. I mean, because my grandkids are interracial. Okay, they have they're black and white, and they didn't feel like they were being discriminated against or anything. It's just that the climate, what they're saying, like, that's where I got that from my granddaughter who's 16. Climate area is the elements in the areas. There's some bad seed in the areas that can cause issues for people, and it's white, black, Hispanic. I mean, we have our low income areas. Now, it doesn't mean everybody low income is bad, because my daughter was low income for a while too, and I was low income at one time. Until I started working for the state of New Jersey and retired out with injuries. But they don't want them going in those areas, because, folks, you don't even want to go in those areas sometimes because you're afraid of getting shot. People who live in those areas, sometimes they don't want to live there because there's a crime element that's going on. So that may be why they're trying to direct Nav Avenue away from those areas, because they don't want those people to get shot or look at Millville as a bad and not come back. They want them to shop and spend their money. But we need to clean that area up, because it's not fair that a criminal element is in that Center City area, and there's a lot of good people in those areas that just are afraid to let their kids out because of shootings, cars racing up and down the streets, motorcycles and stuff racing up and down the street that are illegal.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's so much a black and white race issue anymore. I mean, because I have so many good friends that are black and family members that are black because of interracial marriages. It's not that. I mean, because otherwise people wouldn't be interracial marrying.
Right.
So, and I'm...
So you're basically saying there's a historical valid reason for people to
think
maybe
that,
feel that way, but in more modern times, we just need to like clean up the neighborhoods and make sure that there's no crime going on.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just... Didn't mean to ramble on it, but
No. You're fine.
It's a tough issue for me because I know that because of my grandkids being interracial, and then like my grandparents, great grandparents too, come, and they were more olive skinned when they came over and stuff, and they were treated badly too.
Sure. So. And it's part of my job is when I do hear some of these things around town is. We got to talk about it, right? Because if we don't talk about it,
don't get fixed.
Then my source is going to think that we just don't care and that we're not even willing to talk about it and address it. So, yeah, I understand your take and I appreciate you addressing it. So then the other day you put out your own video on Facebook.
Yes.
And I saw it. So I want to get into that because you touched on some topics that are kind of new to me, or not new, but they're common topics, but I don't know 100% how it applies to Millville and what the more in-depth take is. So one topic you mentioned was the squatters. Could you go into that? Like, are people actually like staying in other people's homes and not?
They're mainly going into the abandoned homes, homes that are abandoned, boarded up. And most of how we find out they're in there are the neighbors in those areas. That's how we find out they're living there. Because the neighbors in the area, and these are neighbors in Center City. And these are, again, it's going back to the elements that are in there that scare the good.
Just to point out, this is a common topic that I've heard in the news. And I've had like theoretical discussions about this with my friends because it's like, some of my friends are political science majors. And they're like, well, squatting has 3 different angles of how you can look at it, blah, blah, blah. But first of all, it's insightful to know that it's actually happening in Cumberland County, in Millville. And then please continue to elaborate on what the actual situation is.
So like squatting, I mean, people are afraid for several reasons. One, they're afraid that they're going to burn the house down because they do start little fires inside the house in a type of can. Second, they're selling drugs. Okay. Now we've removed squatters with the help of the sheriff's department. Now, some of them were women with just kids and a man, and they had no place to go. Understandable. So we need to help you, and we're going to get you to the right places so that you can get off the streets. Others, which are really big time, where people in Center City called me a lot and emailed me. And most of the squatters were from Center City area. So I got a lot of emails from people in Center City that the squatters are next to their house, they're selling drugs. And they have cameras up. And they're filming it. And we have the data on it from them. So police department comes in, we grab the data, we watch them, and then we just... I actually went in with code enforcement. We went around, walked with the property. We can't just take them and throw them out right then and there. So we let them know what our plans are, what we're going to do. We know you're selling dope. We know you're bothering the neighbors in the area and that they're afraid to let their kids out to play because of you. And this is going to come to an end. And that's when we would get a hold of Sheriff Augustino, and he'd get a hold of the owners. The owners don't want the property because normally most of the properties, they're either living in another city in New Jersey, or they are way out of state, like North Carolina, Tennessee. Some of them were down in Florida, and Georgia, and they didn't want nothing to do with the property. A family member died. So they would just take it under a sheriff's sale, and then the squatters would have to go. Now, police would do their thing and arrest whatever they could arrest selling drugs. And then the rest would just probably run off or whatever. And then the families, if families, like I said, were living in those houses with kids and everything, we'd get them help and get them
So
Like M25 initiative was a good place for the homeless and everything. And the county shelter had ideas and stuff to help. Cindy Cook is another one that helps with the properties.
just to clarify, because you were talking about a lot of stuff that happened in the past, are you aware that it is an ongoing problem?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So it would be a part of your agenda
Yes.
to make sure that we're on top of it.
That's why I mentioned what I did and what I would continue to do if I got in.
Right.
But again, it's only like a 1-year thing, like it was last time for me. So if I run this year and I do win, and I could be able to fix the problem, it would just be fixing it for this year, because if I don't win the following,
It might not get.
it might not get attention.
Right. Okay, cool. So you also mentioned you have connections with the Cumberland Reminder, and that helped with the school board in the past?
Yes, I did. I had, I actually, 2015, I actually we were trying to figure a way to publicize our school system. And get people to come back to our schools and let them know what's going on. And they're scratching their heads trying to figure it out. And I'm sitting doing security at Leone's. And I said, you know what? How about if I get the newspaper to cover it, like the Reminder, and give us free pages, and the school can put some information in there. So I called him, talked to the editor. He told him what I just told you about the information from the schools. And he's like, that's a great idea. He said, when can you come down? I said, I can come down today after work. He goes, great. I said, but I got one thing to tell you before I come down. We don't have no money to pay for the pages. He says, don't worry about that. Yeah. He said, we could sell ads and that'll cover the cost. Right. So Dr. Gentile, he wasn't happy about it. He was a little mad at first because it's extra work now.
Sure.
And, because I went to the meeting, I got all the information. I went straight to him after the meeting.
Every idea is extra work.
Right? I know.
It's like, oh, we have a problem. We're trying to solve it. Well, you're going to have to actually get off your butt and do something. Yes. Right? Anyway, go ahead.
So I took it to the board, Mike Wilden, and I can't remember who was president then. It might have been Charles Flickinger. Joe Pepitone, who was on the board but also city commissioner, and Connie Johnson, and Mike Beatty. And they liked the idea. I said, but he doesn't like it. He don't want to do it. Because we had a meeting. I met with them after, like, one at a time. Sure. And let them know. And they said, we'll fix that. It's going to be a part of his valuation. So it had to be a part of his valuation, and he had to use this to publicize the school. And it went through. And actually, he ended up liking it. Yeah. And I have
probably because it worked.
Yeah, it was 4 pages. I mean, and this kids got to put stuff in there. All the schools got different turns to putting things in there. 4 pages is a lot for a school.
Sure.
And he was a big talk around the county, actually, I heard, and they liked that idea. Okay. With the Reminder, and then Financial Times came in afterward, and they weren't able to continue doing it.
So I guess part of what I'm getting at is, would you be able to do something similar?
If the Reminder was willing, I could do it for the city as well.
Right.
Maybe even like a joint venture with the city and the schools, because I'd like to see the school and the city work together. Yeah. Because they work as, right now, a lot of commissioners keep this, not so much the school system. The commission, prior and past, like to keep the school at bay. But the school does get property taxes from us. And even if you don't have kids that are in school, or they are out of school now, or you never had kids, the kids that are in school are your future of America. Right. The future of Millville, future of the county, state, whatever. They're the future. Yeah. So you are investing into the future of your country. Right. So you need to keep informed. Yeah. You need to know what your money's being spent on, and you need to know what they're teaching them.
That too. Actually, that brings up something I've been thinking about recently. And I'm speculating a little bit because I'm only going off of when I was growing up. We didn't have local civics, right? We had social studies and world cultures, right, world history, blah, blah, blah. But who's running your county? You know, like what do the county commissioners actually do? And how is that different than a city mayor? And how does it apply to state government and all this? And I'm not asking you to explain any of that, but I'm saying is I feel as though by doing this website and these podcasts or interviews, whatever we want to call them, there's a lot of disconnect there. You know,
Right.
I'm being asked to vote for a county surrogate, and I don't even know what a county surrogate does.
Right.
Being asked to vote for county clerk, and like I have a vague idea what the county clerk does.
Did you know they used to be called freeholders?
Yes, I do know that.
Do you know why they were called freeholders?
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to attempt my best explanation, which is they had enough property where they didn't have to work. Is that correct? So
They
had all
owed
the
no
time-
debt.
Owed no debt.
Yes,
Okay.
you owned whatever you owned was free. I mean, was paid for, and you were free of debt, is what that meant.
And so
as a
what, you
freeholder.
didn't have to like work and you had plenty of time? Is that
I
part
get,
of it?
yeah, because I ran for county freeholder.
Yeah.
And was back in 2007. So I ran against Joe Pipitone actually.
Okay.
But I gave him. They gave us little forms, and yeah, you had to. I was like, "What is a? Why are you called freeholder?" It was kind of bewildering to me. So when I read it, it's like, "Oh, you had to be free of all debt. You had to owe nobody money to be in charge of the county and be a freeholder."
What is the logic behind that?
They never said what the logic was. It's just
Right.
that you owed no.
And that's
It
why
kind
I'm
of like you owed
speculating.
nobody nothing. You didn't owe anybody money, so I guess basically nobody could kind of influence you.
Yeah. That's
Like,
kinda
say,
sort of what
like-
I was getting at.
I own the land and you own the land and I'm paying you, and you'd be like, well, if you get this through for me, you know, we'll take so much off.
Right.
Or give it to you for free. That might be why it was. They didn't actually go into, but I'm assuming that's why it was called that.
I've heard some suggestions about the systemic racism stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all speculation. I don't want to get into it. But the point is, both of us are going, what exactly does that mean? You know, and
Yeah.
it should just be taught in schools so that not only
Your local governments.
right, so that you're not only aware of what's going on, but then when it's time for you to participate, you don't have to spend 6 weeks figuring out like,
Right.
how do I let my county commissioner know that there's a pothole on this county road over here? Like, who do I call? Where do I go?
Right.
And I know the pothole thing is a little simple or whatever, but there's all kinds of issues. And who are you supposed to talk to? And how are you supposed to get things done when you actually need it done?
Right.
So that's something I would like to see in the future. But I don't know if that's still an issue. Like, they might be teaching it in public schools, but
Nah, they're not teaching local government stuff in public schools.
yeah, I think I should learn more about local government before trigonometry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion. So anyway, let's move on. Okay, so also in the video you mentioned revitalizing High Street. I think it's a great idea, but do you have any specifics about what you would do?
Well, parking is an issue.
Okay.
And I've said it even when I foot patrolled part-time for Millville on High Street. Even during the very first third Fridays, they've had to park off to the side over on Buck Street. And Firestone burnt down across the street from the Bojos years ago. That used to be owned by Jim Quinn, but I think he sold it. The lot is filled up with sand, so it would be easy digging it out of there and put a structure of such a parking garage in there.
I was just thinking that.
And probably could put 2 parking garages in different parts of the High Street. Yeah, because it'd be a lot easier. People can park in there. And then somebody brought, well, what about vandalism in the cars? I said, well, one, we have part-time officers, and they can hire them if they want to. And a lot of them are just young guys that are going to start in law enforcement, and a lot of them are those that are ending law enforcement and just want a part-time job. So we could put them in there to monitor the cameras and patrol and make sure the parking garage is safe. And at night, when the stores are locked up for the night, then we can lock the garage up and close it up for the night, so we don't get any problems in the garage of vandalism. So and that would be a way to bring more people downtown. Hopefully, like, if we could do patrols again down High Street, the stores might be willing to stay open longer.
Yeah.
And that would bring more crowd in and more business for downtown. I know they don't like to see franchises come downtown. Like they didn't want like a Starbucks or anything. They were afraid it would take it away. But some, I'm not
What do you
saying
mean, take it away.
they were afraid that it would. At one time, I heard like take business away from the other stores.
Oh, like corporate
Yeah,
competing
but
with small
if you
business.
have a small franchise like that, my personal opinion, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And I would take this into my community relations committee that I would advise on this situation, which I'm going to be bringing up, is if we brought a small franchise, it don't have to be a big one, maybe a little Starbucks in the middle, so they have to ride down High Street to get to it, and then they might want to get their cup of coffee and walk into a store selling baked goods. I know Starbucks sells some baked goods, but you could probably
No,
work
I know
it.
what you mean. There's
But-
like the bookstores,
Right.
and
But-
maybe there's the bar down the street or whatever it is.
Right.
They're seeing it.
But Starbucks sells like whatever our stores are selling. Like if we got a baked good downtown, Starbucks would work around that and not sell baked goods in there. Just steer you to the baked goods store down there because Starbucks is wealthy, so they don't need all of that. It's just they have ways of helping, and there's other franchises that could help as well, like that downtown. And bring them in because not all the stores are food, but like the bookstores you said, there's OK Clock Shop and those places. So it could help, but I would bringing that stuff in. I'd like to not so much City Hall try to figure this out for people. At first, we go to Community Relations Committee. Put the ideal together, give it to the planning board.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I've been thinking about as well. It's one thing for, I guess, like a random person to show up at a committee meeting
Right.
and suggest something. But if you're having regular citizen meetings,
Right.
it's almost like you've got a built-in petition system there. You've got 100 people at this regular meeting, and they all agree we want Starbucks on High Street. And then you could just hand it over at that point.
We could have, even at the meeting, like we bring it up, and we could probably end up having, if they would be willing to come, the people from the zoning board and from the planning board. And they may come in and say, oh, we're not going to work because of such, such, such. And then the citizens and the planning, or those people can hash it out, figure out why it ain't going to work, how can we make it work, and how can we get this to come in and get the business growing. So this way, what the community relations is trying to make everybody have an investment within the city. You're a citizen, but your say means something.
Right.
You have a say on how we can do this. Now, you might not agree with everybody in here. Your idea might be totally different, but we don't want to make it like a bitch fest that you're going to sit here and tear them apart. If they don't like your idea, you're going to say, can you explain to me why it won't work so I can see why it won't work?
As opposed, a couple of the times when I go to like county commission or wherever, some of the other things is you put forward an idea during public comments, and it's like they talk about it for a minute or two, and then you just go home and
that's it.
Think about maybe there's another way, blah blah blah.
I like
that system of having a regular meeting where we're going to present the good ideas with like 100 people behind it. It's not just some random person.
And even when the meeting's over, everybody has contact numbers. We can contact each other too. Say, hey, I'm thinking of this and that. What do you think? And then, and if they want to have an emergency meeting, I'm willing to do that too. To if something's urgent, they willing to get through.
Yeah.
Because I want to make more people involved in the city who live in the city. I mean, hell, I would even bring in people that are homeless that we're helping, and maybe they can give us some insight because they're in that situation.
Yeah.
And I know I probably, with the community relations, I may get some buckback on other commissioners might not like it, or maybe they will. But I'm willing. I'm one of them, like, when I was on the school board, I was told I was like a hornet because once I get onto something, I just keep pecking and stinging until I get it.
That's basically what I've been doing with this website for the past year.
You got to keep stinging.
The town nudge.
Hey, it's good though. That's how InfoWars started.
Is that?
Yeah, they had those signs up all over. Alex, I can't remember his last name. Alex Jones, yes. He did all that stuff until he got in a little trouble saying something, but that's how he got started with it. And I didn't know. I thought he was around this area because I just seen the signs, but I didn't know he was out towards Texas and all that area. But his signs were up all over, so his followers put them up for him.
Yeah. So sometimes, what is it? Squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of
Yes.
thing? Yeah. So yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, I think the community board is a great idea because it's directly involving.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh well, we're having a county meeting and we're gonna talk about some lawsuit that
Yeah.
nobody knows about for an hour, and then you go home and you're like, what did I just watch? What did
Right.
what am I doing here?
This is actually going to be community meetings will be actually like work sessions for not just for the commission, like these work sessions they have there. It's work session you, the citizens, are involved in.
Right.
There's
Right.
no 5 minute speaking, unless the chair, who will be a civilian, not part of the government, thinks you're talking too long. You have a
Sure,
chair,
yeah,
a
yeah.
vice chair.
You got to have some management.
We'll have a chair, a vice chair, and a sergeant of arms, and between those three, they'll decide. And we could swap them up. It can be different for each meeting, depending on how they want to structure. Because I want to structure it with the citizens involved, not form of government involved in it.
Right.
Because it's for the citizens.
Right. Okay, so you also brought up the panhandlers and the M25 project.
Correct.
I have no idea what M25
M25 is a program in Bridgeton. Actually they're trying to, at one time, I don't know if they still are working on it. They were trying to bring in tiny homes for people.
Oh, okay.
And the mayor of Bridgeton was involved in this. Some people like him, some people don't, but I think he's a great guy. When I met him a few years back, but he's willing, to get land for these, I understood, and put these tiny houses in there. They also started the Code Blue.
Can you explain what the Code Blue is?
The Code Blue is like if it's super, super cold outside. In the winter, they'll bring them in, they give them something to eat and drink and sleep. And I actually helped volunteer
that go
as
out?
security for them at one time. when
Like,
it
what
first
does
started.
that look like?
Well,
Like, how does it get established, and how do people
the churches do it.
Okay.
And Pastor Steve started it with, I think, M25 Initiative, which he had Millville Community Church. And he helped get that started. It was started at the old Al's Bar, which is Buck and Broad. And that was the first one that started. And it's just went out to different churches and stuff throughout the community and county.
How do they know that people, where they are on the street or whatever?
Believe it or not, most homeless people, they have cell phones.
Oh, okay.
And
so they get an alert.
They get an alert. And if those that don't have it, the other homeless will help them find it.
Okay.
But see, some of the homeless too, they're so afraid because they're homeless, and some of them congregate together, which I'm told by them, and they get robbed by other homeless and mugged.
Amazing.
And when they're sleeping, they get mugged and robbed from other homeless. So if they have money or costly things, they try to hide it from it somehow in their clothing and stuff.
Sure.
Because they would prefer staying in a facility like Code Blue, where there's somebody there watching while they're sleeping and everything. Prefer being in the woods or on the streets, because they're on the streets, like on the park benches. We used to have to move them as police officers, but they'd get mugged by kids and stuff, or mugged by their other homeless people, because they're just trying to get something that they can use themselves.
Problems on top of problems.
Yes, and I will do a video with the two that I helped. It's a Hannah and Pat, and I've got them in a facility. With help with some people in a small little tiny house.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do a video with them on what they think of me and stuff. But and there's some others that I've helped. So I mean, it's a joint effort. It's going to be a problem if the economy keeps going the way it is. We're going to have a lot of homeless people.
Yeah.
And job, we used to just say, used to be just above broke.
Right.
So,
I got
and
you.
we're all just above broke though, because most of us have our money in the bank, and if the government decides to slice everything, say your money is no good, and you try to go get it, I mean, anything can happen. I mean,
well, we're all watching.
There's all kinds of things that are going on today that we used to see in science fiction movies, and we said, "Oh, that'll never happen," and it's happening.
Right.
So I don't put nothing past anything anymore.
Exactly. New developments every day.
Yes.
And then you mentioned either squatters, or I think you might have meant loiterers outside of the liquor store.
Yeah, well, the liquor store, but also like at Family Dollar, it's been brought up at commission meetings and stuff, and people asking for money and stuff like that. And it scares a lot of the people going in. I mean, we'll put it this way. Even Hannah and Pat, they were homeless and they used to panhandle. They don't do it and they haven't been on the streets for about a year now. Okay. They're a little leery to walk by people that they know too. Because sometimes they get aggressive, some of the people, if you say no, and some of them don't, but
Right.
it can't be like that constantly.
Yeah, I live near.
I understand that some people it might not bother. It doesn't bother me.
It usually doesn't bother me, but I had an incident. Not really an incident. It's not that big a deal, but I live near the Wawa at Vineland High School, and a couple nights ago, I went in and a guy, just like, he was asking for money or whatever, and I was like, "Sorry, man. Thanks. Have a good night." And he just kind of like, he gave that like a weird
Look,
laughing, insane look. And if you ask and you just take the no respectfully, that's one thing. But if you start looking at me funny afterwards,
Right.
it's like, nah, the line's got to be drawn somewhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because now my gut instinct has to kick in and be like, am I gonna have to watch myself on the way out?
yeah, because the answer to that, because somebody might say, "Oh, we're picking on them," but it's not picking on them. I mean, some of them do have mental illness.
Sure.
That are out there, and some of them are just might be asking all day long and not get a dime, and it's starting to piss them off because they really need it, and it's boiling back to ones that I know that are getting SSD or SSI, living in a rooming house, but they have a habit that they're trying to feed, and they're standing out with a sign that says, "I'm homeless." Okay, when they're not really homeless, they're in a rooming house. Okay, or they're living with friends,
Right.
but they need that money to feed some type of fiend that's in them. Where this one might be really homeless and living in a tent,
Yeah.
and he really needs that money so he could buy a Happy Meal from McDonald's to fill his belly for the night.
Right.
So, I mean, each one of these people you see out there, are all a case by case. It's just like you with your family. You're arguing. You have 4 kids maybe, and they're all fighting, blah, blah, blah. Well, each one has a different case on why they're fighting. So you need to figure out why your kids are fighting and who is actually telling the truth. So it's the same with the homeless, and same with, even as a cop, when we went into the fights. You come in, everything's disarray, a fight, things being thrown over, but somebody started that fight, and it started for a reason. So you have to separate everybody, and you have to figure out who is causing the issue, and who is the good guy, who is the bad guy, who is the problem.
You got to get in there and do the dirty work.
Correct.
Nobody really wants to do it, but you got to get your hands dirty.
Somebody, John Lee posted on there, it was a guy walking around and said he's a scammer, and he's walking with a limp. And he posted it on Facebook, a video of the guy. People responded. I can't remember exactly what they responded. Some were negative towards him, some were good towards him. But what he was doing, John, was just, maybe he had an incident with the guy or something, and that's why he posted this guy. Because the guy walks with his leg like a limp. Sure. And in the video, I thought maybe he was faking, but I actually saw the guy up near Walmart, and this guy, where he filmed it at, was near Chick-fil-A. The guy must evidently have a limp, because I watched him walk for quite a while, and he was walking the same way. So he might have a limp. I do know that he's not really homeless. He's in a rooming house.
Sure.
So I found that out from other people I know that are panhandling, that live in rooming houses. So to get them to stop, I mean, the cities would have to do ordinance, and Vineland police move them. Millville, I don't know if they move them so much. I usually hear about Vineland from those guys, because I keep in touch with them. I do talk with them.
Sure.
So it's usually Vineland police that moves them on and stuff.
All right, cool. So that's coming to an end from me. Did you have any random thoughts or final thoughts you wanted to add?
I just, if you feel that I'm right for you, vote for me. I am not for myself, and I don't have a personal agenda. I just have an agenda to take care of the city and help the people out in the city. And the only thing I want for myself is, my agenda is when I'm out of office, I have a products that I want to start manufacturing and put them on the market. So that's my agenda for me later in life. I'm not trying to make a career out of politics. I just want to do something that's right. And I'm retired out, so I'm living in my parents' house now. They passed away of COVID 3 years ago, and I let my stepson move into my other property. So I'm not really tied to 511 North 6th Street anymore. So I'm over at 18 Hayes Avenue in Millville. And, I just want to let you know that I'm for you. And I want to make you, the citizen, more involved in city government and involved in the city, period. That's why this is going to have this community relations board. So whoever you vote for, I wish everybody the best of luck and wish you the best of luck in your endeavors wherever they may be.
Cool. So just to wrap up, thanks again for meeting me. I really appreciate it. I don't know if I said it at the beginning of the...
if you need TVs picked up too, we do that voluntarily for free. 609-501-2437. That's a free service we provide for the citizens of Millville for the last 13 years. Me and Mike Wilden.
So yeah, just to get back to what I was saying, part of what I've learned over the past year is the campaign season is a process and it evolves over time. So not only do I appreciate you doing an interview, I think it's fairly important that there was a second interview, right? Because about a month ago, you basically introduced yourself to people who didn't know and introduced your platform. And now that things have developed, we've been able to address
more
things
issues
that have come up, chatter on social media, blah, 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 blah. It's an ongoing process, and there's still about 10, 12, 13 days, whatever.
Yeah, I think 13 days, I think.
Not that important for what we're saying. It's just, what has happened over the past month and a half. And now that we have more information, we can talk about what are the actual comparisons. So I really do appreciate taking a second day to sit down and talk.
You're welcome.
So that's about it. Election day is November 5th. If you're doing it early, go out and vote.
I'm number 2 on the ballot.
All right, guys. Thanks for
Take
watching.
care.